Yeah. I mean, Meygan, so to those people out there where they are the one person who's changing, the other person isn't ready quite yet, what got you through? Like what kept you 6 months in, or whenever it was when maybe, Casey wasn't quite ready yet or aware yet? Like what kept you fighting?
Yeah, I mean, my therapist specialized specifically in working with spouses and not couples. I mean, so just like one individual spouse, and she had 7 steps. And so one of those steps was to become self-aware. Know your strengths, know your weaknesses, learn everything good and bad, your triggers, what causes you to become emotionally flooded, deal with your childhood baggage, all of that. And I think like an example would be, for years, Casey would tell me, you're being controlling. And I believed that I was not a controlling spouse because I wasn't self-aware. So then as I became more self-aware and realized, you know what, actually, I can be controlling. I like control. I like to feel in control. I do not like to feel out of control. I can actually show up in my marriage very controlling, right? So he would then, as I started to heal and process things, he would say something like, oh, you're controlling. And what I would say is, you know what? You're right. I have been controlling. And he would be like, jaw drop to the floor, like, wait, I've been telling you for 3 years you're controlling, and now you're finally admitting it. But it was that almost like that freedom to say, these are some areas that I really need to work on and grow in my marriage and in my own life. And so I would say number one is to become self-aware and commit to that. And that's an ever ongoing process, right? Yeah. We've never arrived. The other thing I would tell someone that's listening is to find a really safe person. Whether it's, a best friend, a therapist, a mentor, a pastor. I had some really great girlfriends who weren't just yes people and didn't tell me, you know what, you should just divorce, or you're always right, Meygan. Like I didn't need that. I needed people to challenge me to rethink how I was showing up in my marriage and in my life. And I'm so glad that I had a mentor, a therapist, and friends who I could come to when I was struggling, because we shouldn't do life alone.
And then Casey, what was your path? Like you said, there was that one particular conflict where Meygan really slowed it down and didn't allow you guys to spiral off. Like what happened for you after that moment?
I think watching her change was very inspiring. There is a little known fact about Meygan and I, between both sets of our parents, there are 12 marriages.
Oh, wow.
Meaning, so my mom is actually on her 6th marriage. Okay. So all we know growing up was this disconnection and, watching our parents fight poorly or watching our parents fight and then divorce. Like that's all we knew. And so there was a moment where we felt like, you know what? I don't want to become, and I don't want to walk down the path of my parents. I want to change this. And that was something that we talked about, both of us. And it was a moment for us to go, we need to do something different. Now, the problem was that we didn't have any tools or resources. Like the tools and resources we create today are us talking to Casey and Meygan from years 1, 2, and 3.
Right. I love that.
Like if we could talk to our younger versions of ourselves. So I think there was, through hardship and trying to figure this out, that also actually drew us together too, because we're like, we got to figure this out. We have to find a solution.
I also want to say that a big one for Casey and I that we had to overcome was there was a lot of shame and embarrassment about how bad and unhealthy we were. And he was raised in a home where nobody went to therapy. So he didn't see that. That wasn't normalized. Where I was raised in a home where if you get stuck, you ask for help and raise your hand. So hence why I was the first one to go to therapy. And I think that that's something I'm sure you guys, talk about often and deal with couples, is that there's so much shame in marriage and relationship problems. And we're trying to help kill that shame and say, you are not alone. Yeah. Everybody has issues, whether you see it in the highlight reel of Instagram or not. Behind that are hurts and fights and arguments and, things like that. And so I think Casey being open to learning, wow, you know what? You're right, babe. Like if I got diagnosed with cancer, like I'd go to the doctor and get help. Yeah. Or if our kids were failing math, like we would, and we didn't know how to help them, we would hire a tutor. Why don't we get help for our marriage when we're stuck?
Yeah.
or if our car breaks down, like, and we're not a mechanic, we don't know how to fix it. We're going to go to the dealership or the mechanic to have them fix it. And so I think for me, what I would say for Casey is that him overcoming the fact that there's no shame in getting help.
Yeah.
And that in fact, actually there's a lot of things out there that will help you. And he felt more confident once he started learning techniques and tools. We call it like our marriage tool belt. Yeah. Like he bought the tool belt, but he didn't have any of the tools to go on the tool belt.
It's slowly acquiring.
It's almost as ridiculous as making fun of somebody walking into Tony Robbins seminars and saying, "What are you doing here trying to be successful and all?" Right? We don't shame that for them. But all the top performing athletes, they all have a coach. And so if we never get married for an unhappily ever after. We have relationship goals, right? Of being together, connected, and finding safety and intimacy. And yet we're unwilling to go get help or coaching or tools to actually succeed in that. So it just kind of, the winging it and hoping for happily ever after is just not working for people.